For 13 years, Ramirez woke up before sunrise, put on his apron, and went to the restaurant, where he cooked with love for the entire community. He fed families, cared for the homeless with leftover food, and often paid out of his own pocket to help those going hungry. He never committed a crime. He was loved, respected, and seen by everyone as a true example of kindness. But on an ordinary Saturday, in broad daylight, immigration agents walked into the restaurant, in front of his friends, his neighbors, customers he had served for years. Ramirez was handcuffed like a criminal and taken away, without explanation, without a chance to say goodbye to his wife or the little daughter waiting for him at home. This is the story of an invisible man, a father, a worker, a human being who lost everything simply for existing in the wrong place. You think you know what justice is? Then watch until the end, because the truth hurts, but it needs to be told. It was just before sunrise when Ramirez arrived at the restaurant La Cosecha, still with his coat buttoned up to his neck and his hands deep in his pockets. The street was empty, except for the faint steam rising from the sewer grates and the metallic sound of the key turning in the kitchen door. This was where another day began. 13 years had passed since he crossed the border, and every morning still felt like a small miracle. Ramirez adjusted his apron, washed his hands, and began preparing tortillas with the care of someone shaping dreams from flour and water. "Ramirez, this salsa is so good, it's going to make me gain weight," joked Sheriff Douglas, a regular customer. "Food made with heart feeds the soul, not the belly, Sheriff," he replied with a big smile, wiping his hands on the apron. His wife, Marta, worked as a janitor at an elementary school, and his eldest son, Miguel, was already in his second year of community college. Ramirez had never missed a parent-teacher meeting or a game of Miguel's team. He was discreet, always careful not to draw attention, but it was impossible to go unnoticed for so long when living with such generosity. At the end of each night, Ramirez set aside the day's leftovers, rice, roasted meat, vegetables, and packed them into makeshift containers. He distributed them to the homeless downtown with a tired smile and eyes full of empathy. Sometimes, when food was scarce, he bought it out of his own pocket. "Dios te bendiga, Ramirez," said an elderly woman, wrapped in a torn blanket, taking one of the containers with trembling hands. "He has already blessed me. I'm here, aren't I?" That night, while washing pots and humming an old song, Ramirez didn't notice the white car parked across the street. Inside it, 2 ICE agents silently took notes under the cold glow of a laptop. The next morning, the fresh smell of coffee and baked bread filled La Cosecha. It was Saturday, and the dining room began to fill with familiar voices: families, overnight workers, elderly neighbors. Ramirez walked among the tables, handing out smiles and asking, as always, "Is everything to your liking?" "Better than at my grandma's," a young woman replied, laughing with a napkin still in her hand. In the kitchen, he listened to a podcast in Spanish while sautéing peppers. Keeping his phone in sight, Michael had promised to call about an important test. At 11:43 a.m., the restaurant door swung open more forcefully than usual. 4 men entered. 2 wore black vests with the letters ICE in white. The others were in plain clothes. Conversation stopped. Ramirez looked up and knew, without anyone saying a word. "Ramirez Perez," one of them asked firmly. "That's me. How can I help?" "Immigration and Customs Enforcement. You need to come with us." There was a heavy silence. A woman dropped her fork. Sheriff Douglas rose from his seat, incredulous.
Wait, what's going on? This man has worked here for years. He's one of the best we have in this town. Sir, please stay out of this, one of the agents replied. Ramirez raised his hands slowly, looked around at the customers and kitchen staff. His eyes searched for something familiar, maybe a last gesture, a goodbye. No one moved. Can I at least call my wife? He asked, already handcuffed. You'll have the right to one call. As he was led outside, the townspeople watched in silence. Some filmed it. Others cried. But no one stopped it. The white car took him away.
The cell was small, cold, and windowless. Ramirez felt his shoulders ache with time, unsure if it was from the cold or the weight of everything he had left behind. Next to him, a man cried quietly, trying to hide his pain in a cardboard pillow. Ramirez heard him murmur in Nawam. He thought of his father. The days dragged on. The light never changed. There was no clock. The only way to measure time was by counting how many times the steel door opened to deliver the same plastic, tasteless meal. Ramirez ate little. He saved the bread and gave it to the man in the next cell, who coughed endlessly. Gracias, hermano, the other whispered, eyes hollow. In the second week, an agent called his name. Ramirez struggled to stand and was taken to a cold room with a metal table and a camera in the corner. "Do you have a lawyer?" asked the man with a southern accent. "I don't have money for one. My wife is trying to get help." "Your case will be presented at a preliminary hearing next Friday. You will be able to speak to a judge. But, to be honest, there isn't much chance. The illegal entry counts heavily, even with a clean record." Ramirez said nothing. He just looked at the folder the man carried. His name was written in red letters. It was like a label, not a man, but a file. "Can I make a call now?" he asked, his voice tired. The agent nodded, pointing to the phone. Ramirez dialed Marta's number by heart. The line rang and rang. When he finally heard his wife's voice, his throat tightened. "Ramirez? Mi amor, where are you? We've been looking everywhere." "They caught me at work. They didn't let me notify anyone. I'm in a detention center in Bakersfield." There was a heavy silence. Ramirez could almost hear Marta's held-back sobs. "Camila asks about you every day. And Miguel, he can't sleep. He stays up all night in front of the computer trying to find a way. Tell them I'm okay. That everything will be fine."
Ramirez's voice trembled over the phone, muffled by the metallic noise of the detention room. On the other end, Marta held the cell phone with both hands, as if that could let her feel her husband's warmth. "Ramirez, where are you? We went to the restaurant, the hospital, even the consulate. No one knew anything." "They caught me at work. They didn't let me warn anyone. I'm in a detention center in Bakersfield." There was a heavy silence. Ramirez could almost hear Marta's stifled sobs. "Camila asks about you every day. And Miguel, he can't sleep. He stays up all night in front of the computer, trying to find a way. Tell them I'm okay. That everything will be all right." "You're not okay. You're locked up like a criminal." Ramirez took a deep breath. His eyes were red. He looked at the cold wall in front of him, where someone had scratched a name and a deportation date. "Listen, Martha. Seek legal help. There's a woman, Rachel Cohen. She's helped people here before. A detainee told me about her. Says she works with a group of volunteer lawyers. Maybe... We're already looking. Sheriff Douglas came by the house yesterday. He wants to write a letter to help you." Ramirez closed his eyes, moved. "Tell him I'm grateful. I won't forget." An agent touched his shoulder. Time was up. I have to go. Give the kids a kiss for me. And, Marta, don't let Camila forget my face. She never will. Neither will I. The line went dead. Ramirez stood still for a moment, holding the phone as if it were his wife's hand. Then he slowly let go, walking back to the cell, swallowing the pain in silence.
On the morning of the hearing, Ramirez wore the same beige uniform. He had slept little. The constant noise of the detention center, the shouting, the sobbing, the interrupted dreams weighed on him. Still, when his name was called, he stood with dignity. He passed through the steel doors as if he were still wearing his white apron from the restaurant. The courtroom was cold. No windows, no flags, no dignity. Just plastic chairs, a table with a microphone, and the judge buried under a pile of cases. Rachel Cohn was already there, waiting for him. Miguel stood beside her, eyes hollow and heart heavy. "Dad," Miguel whispered, rising. Ramirez wanted to run to him, to hug him, but the handcuffs spoke louder. Rachel looked Ramirez in the eyes and spoke firmly. "We'll do our best. You deserve to be heard." The hearing began. Rachel presented the documents: the letter from Sheriff Douglas, community testimonials, photos of Ramirez handing out food to the homeless, proof of employment, and even Miguel's good report cards. Each paper was an attempt to prove that this man was more than a file in the system. The government prosecutor was unmoved. "Your Honor, the defendant entered illegally. He never regularized his status. He worked without permission. The law is clear." Rachel countered, "The law also speaks of humanity. He has children who are U.S. citizens. He contributes to the community. He has never committed a crime. This is not a criminal. He is a model citizen." The judge, a middle-aged man with tired eyes, sighed deeply. He slowly flipped through the documents. "On paper, Mr. Perez, your story is moving, but this court does not judge feelings. It judges facts." Silence. "According to Code 8, Section 1325, I order your immediate deportation." Miguel couldn't hold back his shout. "This is unfair." Ramirez turned his face to his son, trying to smile, but his eyes were full of tears. Back in the detention cell, Ramirez stared at the concrete ceiling as if he could see the sky beyond it. It was his last night in the United States. Sleep wouldn't come. The thin mattress hurt him, but the real pain was inside. Next to him, his cellmate was coughing more than usual. "You leaving tomorrow?" the man asked in a hoarse voice. "Yes, in the morning." "Anyone waiting for you there?" Ramirez hesitated. "I left over a decade ago. My parents are dead. My younger brother disappeared. I have a wife, kids, but here—" The other man nodded silently. There was nothing more to say. At 3 a.m., Ramirez was taken out of the cell. They gave him back his old clothes, folded coldly. A light blue shirt, jeans, the belt he used in the kitchen. In a plastic backpack, they placed family photos, a letter from Camila filled with colorful drawings, and a small crucifix Marta had sent with the lawyer. While changing, he looked at the dirty mirror on the wall. He saw the cook who had shared 1,000 smiles, the man who made rice for the homeless, the father cheering on the soccer field. And now, a number, a name stamped on a cold government sheet. Before leaving, one of the agents, a younger man with a conflicted expression, spoke in an almost human tone. "I saw your case. Just wanted to say, I'm sorry." Ramirez just nodded. There was no room for anger, nor for forgiveness. In the dark van, heading to the airport, he held the crucifix between his fingers. He prayed silently. Not for himself,
but for Marta, for Miguel, for Camila, for all the invisible ones left behind, trying to keep hope alive.
The plane touched down in Ciudad Juarez with a harsh thud, as if the world wanted to remind Ramirez that now he was a stranger in 2 countries. He got off alongside other deportees. No one spoke. Steps were slow, eyes distant. An immigration officer collected their documents with indifference and directed them to a makeshift shelter next to the terminal. The heat was suffocating. The dry air filled his lungs like dust. Ramirez walked the city streets with the plastic backpack on his back, searching for a sign of belonging. But the signs in Spanish, the honking cars, the voices, everything sounded strange. His Mexico was the one from childhood, village festivals and afternoons beside his father harvesting corn. This new Mexico was just noise. Sitting on a bench in a plaza, he saw a group of kids playing soccer. A street vendor passed by selling tamales. Ramirez smiled briefly. There was something familiar in that smell. He bought one and ate slowly. Each bite was a piece of longing. In his pocket, he still had his cell phone. No service, but with photos. He opened a picture of Camila holding a sign. "Papi, I love you to the moon." A tear fell. He turned on the Wi-Fi at a cafe and sent a voice message to Marta. "I arrived. I'm okay. It sounds unbelievable to say this, but I'm alive. I don't know what we're going to do. I just know I will find a way. I promise." Later, he found shelter at a deportees shelter. He shared a room with 3 men. One had been deported twice. Another had left children in Chicago. We're leaves in the wind, hermano, but we're still roots, even far from the ground. Ramirez slept holding the crucifix. It was the first peaceful sleep in weeks, and the bitterest of his life.